We are going to proceed there with 7.1, and that's our bylaw. It's a 2503 Springfield Recreational Center Phase 1. Then I will get a mover and a seconder for that, please, before we carry on. Melinda and Glenn. What's next?
Yeah, so we just have a short PowerPoint presentation we'll give now.
That would be me. Wait for it to get pulled up, but good evening. My name is Corey Greenham. I'm principal at RM Architectural Group. I don't reside in this community, but I am from Winnipeg and my wife grew up here. So there's a connection. My kids use all play hockey, basketball, soccer, and of course volleyball in the community. And I may have attended a few bars here once in a while. You can go next slide. I think I just want to start first. I was asked to maybe present just on our commitment to the project, the duration, which has now been 5 years, and then go over a little bit about the design iteration. So how it's evolved over that timeline. Just like your master planning document, our stuff began with the community engagement part of it. So we met not only with user groups that will use the facility, we also circulated surveys online and held multiple open houses throughout all of RM Springfield at various times during the day as well as during the seasons. That really led to what was going to be planned for in the facility and what really set the overall building footprint and what it was composed of. From there, we could put on paper, put a design to it that we could then have priced throughout that duration. That first year of work kind of took us to fall of 2020, maybe summer 2020, of course, during COVID. And then it became a little bit on hold and went through a lot of the funding that's been ongoing to date. So there was kind of frequent still discussion at that time on about the project, but it was more just on where we're at for construction market, where we're at for construction costs as it related to escalation, which we'll get into. And of course, where we are today, and we just recently had an open house. I think all the boards are out in the lobby, of course, online as well. So next slide. This is an example of some of the questionnaire. This is 2 questions of the multiple. I think this was online as well. This is where we asked the community for what they wanted to see in the facility, and to which you would have seen a lot of the responses. A lot of people here talked about today for the programming. Not just that, but when were you going to use the facility and what activities would you want to see into it? If you go to next slide, we then put, after that, we put it on paper. Yeah, so this would have been the first kind of overall master site plan you would have seen. This would have been in the first open houses we held in 2019. I won't speak too much about this. I think when we got involved, only the skate park was in place, and since now, you know, the splash pads developed the outdoor playground. The intention of this, at least this plan, was to accommodate an overall building design, which of course today we'll talk a little about the phasing. But a key part of this was that there was 2 access points, one at the north, one at the south. Try to put as much of the parking in the south. It's always a good strategy to have more accessible parking up front, drop off, and have that parking that really only gets used during big events at the back of the facility. Next slide. Original plans, again, this is, I won't necessarily walk through them, but it had an indoor children's playground. Multi-purpose rooms are always being asked for, at least by our client groups, and can never have enough in any of these types of facilities. A gym, this is about a two court gym. So 4 pickleball, 2 cross courts of basketball and volleyball. That's about the size of it. If you've ever been to Dakota, this would be about 1/3 of Dakota's gym size, just for scale. And then a turf facility as well. Again, if you've been to, say, somewhere like Seven Oaks, if you've ever seen that fully open into a regulation soccer size, I only mention this because a lot of people have asked in the community. This is about 1/4 size of that. So everything in here is very recreation based, but you can still host tournaments. And obviously, given the location to the city and the community at large, that would be a for sure thing that would happen in this facility. If we could just go to the next slide. Upstairs, it's always had 2 stories. Anything on the second floor would be for viewing. And of course, the walking running track. It's been in from day one, it's always had a 3-track. 3 tracks are great because you can pass and you can have walking, jogging, different speeds to it. And then also had a sprint track as well. Upstairs, we're trying to get multi-purpose room again so that you have that on both sides of the major recreation components. And then upstairs having viewing down, which is a pretty typical model for viewing. You go to the next slide. This was a phased design, and I'll get a bit into construction costs. When we would have started, you can imagine over the course of going on 5 years now, that escalation has been pretty consistent at about 10 to 15% in my experience, in our industry's experience, for escalation on a yearly basis. So that would be anything from 0.5 to even above 1% a month typically. Before we went on kind of hold and funding, we were roughly about 20 million plus. And then you can imagine now when we started in about August or fall this year, we are 30 million plus for all in. If we go to the next slide, so that triggered us looking at phasing. We've had multiple discussions with the building committee, with council on costs of some of the components. So we always tried to look at it. If you wanted an indoor playground of this size, it costs X dollars of money. So we looked at all those components and tried to evaluate where we could reduce the facility to what could be a potential phase 1, and of course have lower capital construction costs. A big driver to any of this was that there was really a desire to not lose any programming, and then certainly be in a position to accommodate a phase 2 when the time or when the money was there to support it. So for that reason, we didn't eliminate an indoor children's playground, we reduced it. The biggest way to save construction costs in a project, and if we're talking about a significant amount of money, is to reduce the size of the building itself, reduce floor area. Some components would have never changed. The multi-purpose room, the gym size did not change. The turf facility was allocated to phase 2. And then on the top right, I can't really point, but the fitness center would have been something as well that would have been accommodate the phase 2. So that would be showed dashed lines on the drawing. So then we reduced a bit of the community center. So just a larger open space that we again tried to shrink as an overall square footage, but overall still maintain the exact services and amenities that we've always started off with. And if you go to the next slide, that brought us back to what potentially could be a phase 1 cost, and you would have seen those to be 20 million plus. And that's where we're at here today. And the next steps for us would be to issue tender ready drawings when we get that green light to do so. If we go to the next slide. Where we are, phase 1, the boards that you would see out in the lobby these would only show phase 1 only, so you can see areas in green, say the bottom left, for example, that would just be seated potentially, and parking to be allocated to phase 2. Anything in that brownish tone would be phase 1 gravel parking, and then asphalt parking at the front. The white building, of course, is the gym, multi-purpose room, indoor children's playground, and some of the team rooms for the turf. Go to the next slide. We are keeping in team rooms that are associated with a turf facility. The idea there is, if the turf facility is not built now and it's built in phase 2, could that be an outdoor recreation green space? And then you can use team rooms that are associated with that. As well as if there's any tournament hosting in the gym, you could have the team rooms that could be part of that for teams that are using the tournament or space in the gym. Multi-purpose room stayed the same. It can accommodate about 80 to 100 people. Children's playground got smaller, still indoor, so it's acoustically treated, so not too noisy. And then This facility has always been about intergenerational. So as many people have alluded to today, it's we want a grandma and grandpa to bring their grandkids for them to have activities, for the grandkids to go off, and everyone's under one essentially community hub, as these facilities typically do become. You go another slide upstairs. Keeping seating, it was always very important that this was not just a center for sport. It was always about social and event space. We wanted to make sure that we're accommodating a grad event was kind of the largest accommodating event, which would have 800 to 1,000 people, that we have space here that would provide for that. Go to the next slide. So this shows some of that. Anything on the top row is the variations in sport. I'll just say, if you haven't played pickleball before, you will when this is here. Social event and different arrangements of seating. Any tables, if you're hosting a concert, a lot of that would be brought in. There is a kitchen that serves both the gym and the multi-purpose room. The idea there is that you could have a wedding in the multi-purpose room, be fed by the canteen, of course, and maybe that's a catered event. And then the gym, if you're having a grad event, that you would have access to the kitchen as well. There's some details on there for, yeah, that's okay. No, it's okay. But again, all this has been in the lobby as well, if you want to check it out closer. But phase two, I'll talk about anything. It's when we're designing for flexibility and future phasing, we want to make sure that it's an ease of connection down the road. And so anything that kind of phase one, maybe an exterior window, becomes a door that accesses to the turf. This turf facility, like I said, is about a quarter size field, has 240 seating capacity, clear lines of vision. All the facilities have 30 feet clear heights. That just means you can accommodate any sporting event, very flexible spaces in each of those.
Sorry, Corey, just so everybody's online here. The fact that so everybody's aware, we're including the turf rooms in there and under phase one, because to do so, all the, it's not an architectural term, but all the guts are in there ready for phase two. So it's going to be less expensive because it's already going to be in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. So all the mechanical, electrical services, washroom facilities, anything in the concrete is all in place already. And really what gets added in phase two is just the envelope. So just the enclosure of that turf facility. So it is, yeah, it's some upfront phase one costs associated with it, but it's anything that's included in the phase one is able to use in the phase one. So like I said, team rooms can certainly be used, additional storage even if needed, but they can be used as part of the gym.
Thank you.
Next slide. So what does that look like? This is a revised rendering. We certainly had renderings of the previous open houses. I think the intent here is that it's a very welcoming facility. You can imagine if someone has naming rights that we would have to add that to the front, of course. But something that's straight ahead is the entrance vestibule. You can see the children's playground on the right of that. There's outdoor seating. It's very much as much about the outdoor as the inside. We want to extend seasons, spring, summer, and into fall and winter. As much activity on the outside as possible. And you can see the large gym behind. Go to the next slide. Stepping in, as I think one thing that's always been important to us is the second you're in, you should hear and see the activity within. Having a cafe space, I will say, is very unique to these facilities. Certainly something that communities strive for, and some get in, some don't. But having that really does extend the duration of people when they're on site. Having a quiet place to sit at a fireplace or something like that would be fantastic. And then the ability to see into gym activity or volleyball activities happening would be great. Having the walking running track that's visible from the entrance, and then multi-purpose room, not only one on the main floor, but certainly looking for opportunities on the second floor as well. And then next slide. To the gym itself, in almost every facility that we're looking at designing, gyms are tend to be the number one asked component. They're so widely used, and in this case, not only for sport but for social events as well. And then always having the walking running track that can have you can view down and view up. And then the next slide will be indoor soccer. So maybe a more competitive event here that would ever be played, but a very versatile turf facility. We see it all the time. It's being used for lacrosse, name any sport, baseball training, dry land, anything could be used here. We see it rented for birthday parties. It's incredible space, pretty low cost to build, and a high generating revenue for turf facilities as well. And then in the background, you can see viewing down from that upper concourse area. And that's, I think, the next slide. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for me at least.
Thank you, Corey. And Amram, our Chief Financial Officer, will take it from here.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor Pat and Council. I'm here to speak. My name is Amram Bangram, Finance Manager here at RM. I want to speak a little bit on the borrowing figures. We're looking at phase 1 for the Recreation Center. The project estimates that we got from LM is $20,625,000. And of that, we have 3 components of funding sources. We have grants, we have reserve contributions from the RM, and then the borrowing that we're considering. So as at dates, we have $4.7 million of grant towards this project from the province. And then we have reserve funds, which also includes donations that have come in, about $4 million as well. And so the amount that we're considering for the borrowing bylaw is $11.9 million. We've estimated using rates of 4.5%. Interest rates is trending downward. We believe we'll continue to see lower interest rates in the years ahead, which would be very good for this project in terms of borrowing. But we've used 4.5% on these estimates, and borrowing, we're looking at a 20-year term. And with that, we're looking at an annual debenture payment of $914,000. I'd like to just state that given that this is an estimate, and when we're looking at how we generate the payment for the annual debenture, our assessment as a municipality comes into play here. Our assessment has increased and will continue to increase. So what will happen when we take up a debenture for 20 years, you're making constant dollar payments every year, meaning the amount you're paying every year will not change for the period of 20 years. But over that 20-year period, your assessment value is going to change. And what that does, it helps to lower the tax impact on residents. So for now, with this estimate, we're looking at for $100,000 residential assessment, apportioned assessment, only 45% of that is subject to tax. And that comes to $20.43. So 3 years from now, assessment goes up again. That amount, that $20.43 will decrease. It could be $18, it could be $15. And also, as new residents come in to be part of the community, they will also, because they are coming also with that increased assessment, even though existing homes also will be part of that increased assessment, but the new residents coming also would be part of those paying for the rec center as well. So it's not just existing residents that will be paying for the rec center. The new residents will be paying for it. They are coming with increased assessment to the RM. So these are the figures that are being considered right now. And as you heard from fundraising committee members, there is efforts being made to generate donations, funds towards this project, which they do have a target. They could surpass that target with their determination. And what that would mean is that though could have a borrowing bylaw for $11.9 million, the amount that we may end up borrowing may be less than $11.9 million. We may not borrow $11.9 million, and management is fully aware of its fiduciary duties. They want to reduce the tax burden on our residents. Management understands the importance of having the recreation center. The value of the recreation center cannot be quantified in dollar terms. The benefits that will accrue, which most of you have articulated here, to the residents. It is an investment and it will cost you less as we move forward. That is what I know from what I see dealing with the figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Amram. And that's it for the presentations there for the 7.1. And now it's time for council to have a discussion there. And I'll be the final one to kind of summarize it, and then we can vote. Who would like to lead off? Glenn?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to make a few comments. I've been on council for 3 terms. I was part of the master recreational plan. I can tell you exactly like Mr. Ratai said, we did many open houses. It was very engaged, and we did the plan based on what the people said. Having said that, I'd also like to say that, you know, second term, we got hit with COVID. So council was very concerned with the COVID issue, so we did not proceed forward with the borrowing bylaw or moving forward at that time. So now we're here at the 3rd term, and it's time, in my feeling, to proceed on. I campaigned on this, and I am economically, fiscally responsible, and I can prove that for being in business for 40 years. And we're doing the same thing here. We're looking at phase 1. We're not looking at the full build. As LM Corey said, we've even downscaled it. We haven't made it the same size. We've done many things. Having said that, there's the tariffs in place. And you know what? I want to say this. Don't let the USA cripple RM of Springfield and Canada. Let's move forward. Having said
Please
that,
hold the applause, please.
Having said that, we still have to be economically responsible. And there's the economics to this, as Mike said. It's the dollars that are going to be coming into the town and being spent, not just on the rec center, but what's accumulated with all small businesses in the area. Just want to state that the last open house, council invited the federal MPs here. We didn't have them all here, but we are pushing and trying to get a federal grant. Just because this is the worst case scenario on the borrowing doesn't mean we stop pressuring the government for helping us out with this project. Third, and lastly, I'd just like to state a statement that Councillor Miller said, and just for clarification, the roles of the responsibilities of us as councillors. We're not here to represent wards once the election's over. It states in our council members' roles and responsibilities, we represent the public and act in the best interest of the whole community. And that's what I do every day when I come here. It's not about my ward, even though the ward is very important, but I look at the whole aspect for the whole community. And I can tell you that from the Cooks Creek to the Enola to inside the perimeter, it's important for everybody to use this facility, and I'll be promoting it that way. And I would ask everybody here in this audience or on Zoom or any resident to promote this community with the rec center. Thank you.
Okay. I think maybe it's good if I think everybody wants to talk. We'll end off with you, Melinda, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then I'll finish it off there. Andy, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you everybody for doing the presentation. It was really heartwarming, you know, that how the community is for it. And that's really putting us in a position that, you know, community is getting together. And that's really nice to see. However, our situation changed last 20 days. with the tariffs coming into our community. Gonna affect us, we want it or not. And we don't know what the response of the Canadian government gonna be too. United States playing the big role, and it's not fair to us as a Canadians, but we have to deal with it. And we probably gonna deal, they're a lot bigger than us. And if we fight with them, we probably gonna lose. Everybody, whoever running from present government, who wanna run for the being next elected representative of the Liberal Party, they try to be tough with the United States. I don't think so that the war, that the play that they're presenting to us, I don't think it's gonna affect us in a positive way. So we as a community, we have to feel and how that's gonna affect us. I don't wanna commit ourselves to the borrowing bylaw today and month from now, we're gonna regret that decision. Because we're gonna say, wow, what did we do? It's gonna be very hard to back out from that situation. So I would suggest that we defer and have our decision make maybe 2 months from now, where it's more clear to everybody. So that's my position. I'm not against the rec center. I want to have rec center in our community because it's going to be needed, and it's needed now. But we have to be realistic. We cannot just see like, well, we're not going to be affected. We will be affected.
Please,
Thank you.
keep the comments down, people. Mark?
It's on? Yeah, it's on. All right, well, thank you very much. There's a couple of pieces of the puzzle I want to explain where my position is at. Again, a firm believer in recreation. I think it's absolutely critical. The residents that actually not just in my ward, Councillor Fuel, have expressed to me by text and emails over the last little while, and I'm going to read some of them because I think they're important. How much has been pledged by the community in fundraising? We know one of those answers from Mr. Witkowitz. Today it's about $2.1 million, I think, for the record, and I think you want to build and strengthen that, and that's fantastic. As Councillor Kaczynski just indicated, and I don't want to be a pessimist, I'm mostly an optimist, tariffs and uncertain political climate make this potentially unwise time to approve such a project. Again, these are comments from residents that have come my way, so I want to respect those, right? What is the direct impact on their taxes and for how long? We've got some answers today. It's about $100, and then per year beyond that. How much dependency is there on fundraising? Again, that was cleared up a little bit today. Draining the reserves at this time does not seem cautionary in terms of financial issues. For instance, this one individual said, we are overlooking our own local challenges for a discretionary item. And what this person was talking about, as some of you may have heard or you will hear on the media, perhaps a clipper, is that Elm Drive had a sewer back up to approximately 8 to 10 residences. And so they were saying to our community, you know, can't the RM at least pay our deductible for our insurance claim that we have on these residences? So these are our neighbors, right? These are people in Oakbank. The answer would be no. So these people are out of pocket on the sewer backup. So I'm just saying we don't have the funds for that. Again, these are comments I just want to share because I think they're important, and some of these people wanted me to share them. Transcona, and believe me, I'm very competitive. So Transcona is building a new complex, and in reality, people may opt to use that. Well, that could be the case, right? Just like I've used the Winnipeg Winter Club and other, the Asper Center and stuff like that for our kids and for myself. Prudent business sense despite many people's eagerness. And again, we've been in this boat many years ago, and let's get on with the ship, right? I can understand that. Beyond that, I guess my question would be for our finance manager and or the architect, Corey, what safeguards would you have for our residents that there will not be cost overruns? And I didn't fall, nor did anybody in this room fall off the turnip truck yesterday. The Winnipeg Police Building is $78 million over budget. I don't know if somebody could share with me one project, and I don't want to fearmonger, but I'm going to say to you, if we could commit that not one extra cent would have to come out of our ratepayers at that $20 million expenditure that's anticipated, you would probably have more buy-in from me. But is there any safeguards absolutely on the record from our finance manager or the architecture group, as Councillor Kaczynski indicated, maybe these tariffs will actually decrease prices and we'll all be cheering to the street corners. But can we have some assurance? Again, government gets this wrong 9 times out of 10. It's truthful. We budget for something like this and it just doesn't get there. So do we put more emphasis on the fundraising committee that they'll have to ante up more? What's the solution to that? I need some safeguards. I want also, I guess you can perhaps answer it now, but I really, really want the federal government to ante up. Councillor Fuel indicated members of Parliament Danko and Falk were here. I'm not sure if they give you any assurance that if they form government, that they'll be writing the check tomorrow. And that could happen within the month, right? The Conservative government may in fact form government. If that's the change that's needed to safeguard us $4 or $5 million, well, maybe that's the case. Mr. Witkowitz, you know that I have friends within some political circles. But you know what the reality is? Politics is dirty and it's tough. And a liberal government is probably not so eager to fund a community that isn't the same red color. And so there's some red roadblocks there, but I'm not sure if Councillor Fuel or our finance manager or anybody can give us some assurances that we'll get federal funding and that that $20 million expenditure is going to be held at $20 million. Those are the 2 questions I have.
You know, I think I can probably answer that. Amram, if you can step in and tell me if I'm out of line here, but there's no assurances in anything nowadays. There is cost overruns, and I can't say that. This is just a boring bylaw there, and then there'll be a final number, I guess, you know, and we'll be saving the whole time as well. I know there was a comment there that we're going to deplete our savings account. It's like running your household. I have 5 envelopes, figuratively speaking, there for things that I want to buy. We have saved up for this recreational center. We drastically increased it in the last 2 years there, so that it's at the amount that it is now, just because of our good fiscal responsibility. Knowing that this rec center is evolving into what it is now. In the position that we are now, to say what our guarantees are, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to get that. As Corey was saying, it's been 10 or 15% per year for the increases there, and hopefully it'll come to a freeze, but not likely there. So we have to just work on the number that we have there. And as for the federal funding, that'll come just like our water treatment plant. Started off at 29 million. We're now down to 8 million because we got these grants, but we're not going to stop time to wait and see if we're going to get the funds there. That's just how we do things and how it has to be done. Otherwise, we'll get nothing done. It'll be zero to be done there. We cannot wait for the right time. I think Wab Kinew, our premier, has stated we will ride this wave there. We have our federal governments that have to deal with Mr. Trump there. We have our provincial government that has to deal with Wab Kinew, Manitoba, and all the other premiers in their respective provinces there. So the tariffs, I think if we could be analyzing it to death. What is it, paralysis by analysis there? We have to be fiscally prudent in how we're doing things, and we've made all the difference there in our phase 1 approach as opposed to a full build at phase 2, just cost prohibitive. That's what council had agreed to. Am I out of whack there, Amram? Does that sound right so far? Does that answer the question? Speak up, Amram. No, that's fine. I'm sorry. I was just joking, Amram. Colleen?
So I think I just want to clarify a couple points. So I have no doubt the fundraising committee has set a goal for, I think, 4 million in fundraising. No doubt you will reach that. To date, though, we have only received 276, 292 in our bank. Everything else is pledged. So the bylaw that we've written is only calculating that 276. So we know an additional almost 4 million is going to bring that borrowing amount down once it's received. A lot of that is pledged and waiting for this bylaw to be approved before they will commit and send us the money. So a lot of that's going to come flowing in after that is done. The other thing is the reserves. So we are using reserves that really are strictly for recreation. So our dedication reserve, we can collect 10% from subdivision applications, and that reserve has been building, and it's to be used towards recreation facilities for the community. So the dedication reserve, the parks and facilities reserve, and the bipolar reserve, which has historically over the last 8 years been strictly used on recreational projects. So these all are reserves that can't go to the water treatment plant, can't go to the lagoon. So these are reserves that are specific for this project. So we're not draining reserves that could be useful in other areas. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you very much, Colleen. And Melinda.
I get to speak. Thank you.
Yes.
So being in this municipality for 48 years, I gotta honestly say thank you very much to all of you that have contributed to the rec center and all of you that are committed for the volunteering. So far with the fundraising, I have to say I have been to all 3 events. Thank you very much. Last night was a success. And I hope we continue to keep on having more fundraising, and I hope to see more of council at these fundraising events. In saying that, back in previous council, when they did have an open house in Anola, I did go and attend the open houses. And I was one of those people. I was one of those people that walked in and went, my kids are old. I have a disabled daughter. I'm probably not going to use this recreation center. Well, shame on me, because I walk a lot of miles and it's cold outside and I don't want to walk right now. And I see that my son wants to go to Birds Hill Park and rollerblade and do other activities. So I was once that person that said I would never use that. And I've got to say, there's a lot of community out there that wants to use this facility. It's a meeting place for everyone. So that's basically where I look at it. And I commend you guys for trying to get our borrowing down with 4 million. And I hope we can get more than 4 million. So that 11 million is worst case scenario. And I do hope that one day the federal government will come in with our funding. I do know when they did visit, they did give us more information, and we passed that on to the rec department to get more, to find out the different avenues that we can still research to get more money from the federal government. Yeah, we have some from the provincial government. We always would like more. We know that they're struggling too, but keep up the good work and let's go.
Thank you, Melinda. I'll end it off here and then we're prepared to vote there. It's been 32 years since our old hall was torn down with assurances that it would be built, and it never has. A community needs a place to gather as a central place where our families can assemble, and the culture and the hub of the community that's been mentioned 3 times tonight in delegations. The time now is to act, not to find reasons not to. We have done extensive discussions, questions asked, answered in this administration for the last 2.5 years. We as council have met with the architects, directors, and administrations, finance included, and we have worked as a team to fulfill what is a need for our community. We've decided on a phase in approach from 20 million as opposed to 30, which would have included both phases 1 and 2. And no disrespect to any administration councils before us. It has zero relevance. Everybody comes into this, they take their oath, and I take my oath extremely seriously to do the best for the RM of Springfield. We were handed a baton, and we now have that baton. There's work that was done prior to this. So the administrations we've all had this together, and now we're working together and had the baton handed to us. So things, if we delay and delay, costs go up and momentum ceases. The momentum is now. We have momentum, so let's take advantage of it. And facing opposition, which is to be expected, and is good governance where and when it's necessary. But to oppose everything, no matter what, in opinion, is it only adds to derision there. The true Canadian hero is I call Mr. Terry Fox. He's an absolute exceptional. His quote was, "Dreams are made possible if you try." So we have to be cognizant of events around us, no doubt, but we need to make decisions on facts. I trust our provincial and federal governments. I do not think overanalyzing something from the media, social media, is the way to go. Trust your elected officials, as I do. Our Premier Wab Kinew has stated with regards to tariffs and so on, we will ride this wave. And as a community, we will ride this wave as well. The boring bylaw is set at the $20 million there, and be reducing as the financial sheet is made, the ledgers, and we'll hopefully get that federal funding. Our water treatment plant is a true example of this, where we started off at 29 million, we got it down to $8 million now. So all the things come into place there. I have lots of hopes there that the federal government will follow through, and we're taking that first step now. So the benefits are, I'm not even going to get into what the benefits are, because all our delegations were exceptional tonight. They espouse all the benefits there. And with that, I'm going to end the questions and comments there, and we're prepared to read the boring bylaw, and then we can vote.
Be it resolved that first reading be given to bylaw number 25-03, being a bylaw of the RM of Springfield, to provide for the expenditure and borrowing of funds for the construction of phase 1 of a recreational facility within the RM of Springfield.
With that read, can I get a show of hands of those in support? That'll be Melinda, Glenn, and Patrick. Show of hands of those opposed. Nobody's opposed. Those who want to abstain, Mark and Andy. So that will be carried there. And then I got a question. Do we need a reason? Okay. Okay, so that is carried. We are going on to a consent agenda.